Good morning and welcome to my weekly Love and Gratitude series. As always, I'm recording in French what I shared in English, and I'm also always grateful to share this sacred space with you as we reflect, expand, and remember the truth of who we are beyond the mind's limitations. So, today we explore a profound aspect of our spiritual journey, the way we try to humanize the invisible. As human beings, we naturally seek to define, categorize, and understand everything. And we do this with the knowledge we have and from the definitions we had or we can have if they are new ones. This is how we navigate the world. We give names to things like trees and sky and body and brain and energy and soul so we can relate to them or try to relate to them. We do the same thing with the spiritual concepts, even though we cannot fully grasp what they are in a tangible or visible way. For example, we say, this is the self, this is the ego, this is the mind, this is the higher self, this is the divine, this is Christ, and so on and so on. We create mental boxes to hold these vast infinite realities. And we do this because it makes us feel safer, more in control of the unseen. But somewhere deep within, we know that those images and definitions are not fixed, not even true. A fixed and untrue belief would be like someone still believing, for example, that God is a man somewhere living in the sky far away. That is fixed and a false collective conception. It was at one point. And such belief is like an ego veil keeping you from accessing truth. What if, in our attempt to see the unseen, we are only projecting our limited understanding onto the limitless? Guess what? That's what we do. It's normal, and it's also why so many people have different definitions of the same thing or different images for the same definition. And we even argue about those. Definitions change as we evolve and learn. But before they do, it does limit us when it comes to expansion and awakening. Imagine a child looking at the ocean. He might call the waves the ocean. He names what he sees. But what he sees, the waves, separates him from the true definition of the ocean, of what an ocean is, not realizing that the ocean is more than just the surface. The ocean extends into deepness he cannot see. It moves with the currents he cannot feel. And yet, to this child, the ocean is only what he sees, so what meets the eyes before he knows more. And we do the same thing with consciousness. We look at ourselves and try to pinpoint where the divine resides. Is it in the brain, in the heart, the space between the thoughts? We search for the location of the mind, the boundaries of the soul, the face of God, source, divine mind, or infinite intelligence, whatever feels right for you. We want to make the unseen visible, the formless tangible. But this seeking is part of the ego's need to grasp what it cannot grasp, what cannot be grasped. The invisible is not something we can hold with our intellect. It's energy. It flows through all things within and beyond what we call self. When we try to define it, we create illusions, more illusions. The ego whispers, if you can understand it, you can control it. But control is not the way of truth. It's not the way to truth. Surrender is. Surrender does not mean admitting defeat. It means stopping controlling the divine mind. Lean into it. Trust it. You cannot see the invisible, but if you see its effects, you know it must be there. By perceiving what it does, you recognize its being. And by what it does, you learn what it is as we can read in A Course in Miracles. Think of the wind. You cannot see the wind itself, only its effects. You see the leaves rustling, feel the breeze on your skin, hear it whistle through the trees, but the wind itself remains unseen. But we are so eager to have an image of everything that can exist that even for the wind, with our intellect, we have imagined images for the wind, like these undulating lines or the blowing clouds. We need images for everything. Spirit, consciousness, divinity. These are like the wind. We experience their presence, but we cannot limit them. And like the wind, we want images to secure ourselves in the familiarity, away from the unknown and the unseen. This is why we find so many interpretations of spiritual concepts. The same word can carry so many different meanings depending on where we are on our journey. Take the word soul, for example. Some may feel the soul needs to be saved, rescued from darkness or separation. Others may see it as something that needs healing, tending to, like a wounded child. And yet others might view the soul as perfect, untainted, an untainted ray of higher consciousness, already whole, already divine, because it is an expression and expansion of the divine mind. They are simply reflections of the observer's level of self awareness and evolution. We project our understanding onto these concepts, explaining them through the lens of our own growth. This is why, as we evolve, new understandings about the unseen and the invisible make their way to our belief system, to your belief system. This is also why the ego clings to definitions. It feels safe in what it knows. But as consciousness expands, definitions dissolve. And what we once believed to be true transforms into something greater. The human mind resists accepting the unseen. It wants to know. It wants certainty. So we create concepts. We say, Christ is above, guiding me, or the ego lives in my head. These ideas are false, but they're not fundamentally wrong because they serve as stepping stones to understanding step by step. We know they are not true. We know they are not fully right, but our ego wants to make them right. But eventually, we must go beyond them. It is only with the heart that one can see rightly. What is essential is invisible to the eye. This is from Antoine de Saint-Exupéry in The Little Prince. We cannot escape truth no matter how long one tries to live against it. The journey to expanded consciousness requires us to cross these conceptual barriers. And these barriers are layered like veils. Each time we shed a layer of belief about who we think we are, about what we think the divine mind is, we come closer to direct experience of our full potential. But the ego clings to the veils because they feel familiar. They give an identity, and the ego is all about ego identity. Imagine walking through a dense fog. At first, the fog feels like a wall, solid and impenetrable. But as you step forward, the fog begins to part. It was never a wall, just a cloud of mist. The veils of the ego are like that. They seem to divide us from the truth, but they only persist if we stop walking and start believing what they're showing us. Lao Tzu said, Look for it and it can't be seen. Listen for it and it can't be heard. Grasp for it and it can't be caught. Because when we look for it, when we listen for it, when we try to reach it, we do it from an ego based standpoint, from how we define it. Just like when walking through a dense fog. It's not there. It was just a cloud of mist. One reason for the ego to keep us from better understanding the unknown and the invisible is that the ego thinks of itself almighty and powerful. So it does not want to access the unseen and the invisible because it knows and hides the true power, which is invisible to the ego. But once we access that inner power, the ego fades and loses its own power. We might think, I have to get rid of the ego to find the divine. But even this is a trap of the ego based mind. The ego is not the enemy, it's an ally showing us our misalignment with our higher self. It is part of the human experience. We need it to see our ego reality. We simply must not make the ego the master of ourselves. The key is not to destroy it, but to see through its many, many veils, lifting them one by one, which means changing a belief one at a time. These layers of veils, each one is a belief, a judgment, a need to control or understand. And each time we lift one, we come a little bit closer to the truth, to the light. One of our tasks is to recognize that whatever is just another layer of perception. I talked about this in the first two episodes, I think. So if you have not seen them, just go check them out. When we have inner visions, we sort of translate what we receive through images that will make sense to us and speak to us. But the inner visions were in vibrational frequency and energy form. Just like when we channel, we do not receive words. We put the words according to the frequency we receive. Like when I teach and speak of things like ego veils. Of course, in my vision, I saw many veils, and I saw what felt like a representation of the ego using a thread of a vanishing negative and dark veil containing a false belief, weaving a clearer and white one from it. So I knew that even if it was a positive new belief, it was still an ego based one. It was still between me and the source of light. Take, for example, the idea of separateness. We think I'm here and God is there. The soul is there. But where is there? Can you point it? Can you point to it? Is it in the sky, in the distance real, or somewhere in your heart? But is it possible that there is no separation at all and that the divine is as close as your breath, as present as your awareness? Something the ego cannot even conceive. The intellect cannot conceive that. Divine truth is not something we can argue over or possess. It's not a mental construct. The more we try to define spirit, the further we move from it. Because spirit is not something to be defined, it is something to be experienced from within. And even when we say from within, we try to imagine that it is somewhere from within ourselves, probably smaller than our ego identity. We still try to define it. Going within is actually to help you close your eyes and to stop seeing your ego reality that is around you, even yourself, your body. So you stop having definition to what you feel, what you might see and might hear. And this experience happens when we release the mind's need to understand and instead allow ourselves to simply be. For the ego based mind, being is sitting still and doing nothing. Being is actually not being your ego identity or anything tangible that you might think you are. So being is being your essence, your non-visible higher self, enjoying and following your higher self moment. The ego cannot access that, so it found a definition to what being is. So we can understand now why we feel guilty of just being when we look at its ego definition. This is why practices like meditation and stillness are so powerful. They help us loosen our grip on concepts. In silence, we begin to sense what words cannot express. We touch the infinite. not through thinking, but through presence. It's like trying to hear a subtle sound. If you make noise trying to listen, you drown it. But if you become quiet, the sound reveals itself. The same is true for the divine awareness. It emerges in the quiet space beneath thoughts, not between thoughts. Nuance. So, how do we navigate this? How do we cross the barriers of the ego and step into expanded consciousness? Well, the first step is noticing the tendency to define everything. When you catch yourself labeling, this is ego, this is the spirit, pause. Ask yourself, what if I don't need to label this? What if I just need to feel it? In life, we want to label everything, every situation, every relationship, every job, every career, because the ego needs control and certainty. So catch yourself when you want to label something and then practice trust. Trust that you don't need to figure out everything with your ego based mind. Trust that the unseen is holding you, even when you cannot see it. Trust that you are always connected to the divine, not through understanding, but through being. We even try to create an image to comprehend this concept, with, for example, a silver thread from our body to the divine mind, somewhere in the unseen. We need images. The invisible is not something we reach, it is what we are. We see what seems like a visible image of ourselves, but it's not who we are. And the more we let go of the need to define it, the more it reveals itself, like the sun emerging when clouds dissolve. Truth shines when the veils of the ego based mind begin to fall away, to vanish. So this week, I invite you to soften your gaze, to release the need to humanize the infinite, to stop searching for where God is, divine mind, source, infinite intelligence, whatever feels right for you. And instead, start resting in the knowing that there's nowhere the divine mind is not. We are not separate. We are not lost. You are not lost. You are already home. Home is your essence in the unseen, in the ego unknowable, in the eternal expanse of love itself. Have fun with this week. Thank you for joining me in this week's reflection. I hope you enjoy my Love and Gratitude series as much as I do. I encourage you to share it with your friends and your audience. We never know who needs to hear this. It might help them. May your week be filled with gentle reminders of the divine presence that flows through all things. And may you walk with peace, love, and gratitude, knowing that even when you cannot see the light, you are the light. And remember to breathe in, to let go of all your ego based thoughts and vision, to see from your soul, and to love out. See you next week.
If this reflection resonated with you and you feel called to deepen your practice, I invite you to explore the e-guides or spiritual mind treatments, especially designed to support your journey. You can also join the membership to access all these resources for free. And if you simply wish to give in gratitude, donations are always welcome with love. Simply follow the links in the description. However you choose to engage and share, know that your presence and devotion to your path are truly appreciated.